Hey guys, Poro here. I literally just woke up. It is 5 in the morning. First stand is starting in 4 hours, so I'm gonna bang this out really quickly. I'm hoping that I can get this done in under an hour since there's not that many players. Originally, for Worlds, I did a player ranking video and a team ranking video for each individual role. This time I'm just going to do it all in one fell swoop because I don't have time, obviously. But yeah, if I sound tired or if my thoughts are incoherent, then just blame the fact that my sleep schedule isn't the best. But anyways, let's try to get this done before first stand actually starts. I'm saying this at the end of the video because I realized I forgot to say this at the start of the video, so I'm going to say this now and then move it to the start of the video. I have first stand co-streaming rights. So if you guys want to, like, if you're looking for a co-streamer to watch for first stand, you can check out my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/psychopathic Poro, and we will be co-streaming the entire event. So, yeah, come watch me for that. Looking at this, I think I'm actually going to not do this by tier. No, I am going to do this by tiers. You know what? I'm going to do this by tiers because it'll give people a good idea of how good I think these players actually are. Because, like, for example, there's going to be some players who are going to be pretty low in their respective roles, but I think are actually solid players. So let's start out with Genji. I think Keen, S tier player, obviously. He's a great player. He is amazing at matchups. He is the best in the world at a number of very strong meta champions at the moment. By the way, if people are only watching this video, do note that I have a team breakdown posted for all 8 of these teams where I go into more depth about each of the players. Like I have like little segments about them. So yeah, I think he's the best top laner in the world for the past few years now. And then I think he's been either the best or top 2 or maybe top 3 since like 2018 or some shit. Like he's just really, really good. You know, I feel a little bit weird about doing this, but I think it would be kind of fun if I rated all the players on the same tier list. Like if I just started brutally giving players ratings that show like who I think is the best players on each team. Next up is Canyon. I think Canyon is worse than Keen, but I actually am going to put Canyon in S tier. So if people watched any of my videos last year, especially like the ones in Split 3, you might be a little bit surprised that I would put Canyon up this high because Canyon last year had a really, really rough stretch. So he was really good in like Split 2 playoffs. He was great at MSI. Then in Split 3, there was a stretch that was a month to a month and a half where he was just playing really not great. I say not great because he was playing fine, but just not at the level that we expect from somebody like Canyon. Like he was a little bit too passive. He was making a lot of mid and late game mistakes. If Genji ever dropped games, Canyon was a big reason. It especially mattered in big moments like in LCK playoffs in their upper bracket series against KT. A lot of it was Canyon and Chovy had a really bad series and Cousin BDD were simply much better on the day, and that's why KT were able to get away with that upset. This split, I think it started out a little bit rough. I thought that for the first few regular season matches that Genji played, I was thinking Canyon might still be on that same trajectory, but as we progressed through the split and we got all the way to playoffs, he actually ended up becoming pretty good again. By the time that we got to grand finals, he was pretty much on his A game, looked pretty similar to the Canyon that I would expect to see on a top level team. So I'm thinking that I'm down to bring him back up to S tier because I did have Canyon sitting at A tier for a little bit, but yeah, I have him back up for S tier at first, and I think he should be the best jungler at the tournament. Chovy, I'm gonna put above Keen. I think, of course, it's always going to be a little bit contentious when you put Chovy up this high on a tier list because there's a lot of people who are biased against Chovy. There's a lot of people who are biased for Chovy, and the most recent tournament that Chovy attended was Worlds, and he did underperform pretty heavily in that semifinals where they got eliminated. So I can understand why people would be skeptical about Chovy, but it's the same kind of song and dance we do every regular season. Chovy had a fantastic regular season. He had a fantastic LCK playoffs. He was playing super well. Some of the best individual games we've seen all split. Like his Aurora game was probably the single best game we've seen anybody play globally. So I think Chovy will be extremely dominant at this tournament. He's been really dominant at every international tournament not named Worlds that he's attended, so I see no reason for him to not just sweep through everybody in this one as well. Next up is Ruler. I think I'm going to put Ruler here. I don't really have too much to say about Ruler. I think that he is, in my opinion, I think he's the best AD carry in the world right now. There are some people who might say Diablo, some people who might say Viper, but generally I would say that I think that due to Ruler's experience and the way that he meshes and flows with the team in mid and late game, he just plays League at a higher level than other AD carries. I think that we saw that when Genji played against Fear X in their 2 best of 5s. Diablo was a little bit lost. He couldn't really find good advantages in lane. So, yep, I think Old Man Ruler still got it. I think he is still an S tier player. And then finally, I think Duro is also an S tier player. I would probably put Duro. I'll put him here. I mean, I think Duro is the most flexible player on the team. Like, if you wanted to put him anywhere from like second to fifth, you probably could make an argument for it. But basically, the point is with Duro is that the improvement that this guy has shown has been crazy. He went from being only fine in Split 1 last year to being very good in Split 2 to being super elite in Split 3, and now in 2026, he is one of, if not the best supports in the world. You know, I think if T1 had qualified for first stand, depending on how their run looked, you could still put Keria over him if you wanted to, but T1's not here, so in terms of what I think of the different supports, I think that Duro is kind of the best that we have by a pretty sizable margin. I expect him to be very dominant. And I also do want to stress one more time that my analysis in this video isn't actually going to be that good. Like, I'm not really going to go over detail of like specific examples of why I think players are good and great, because one, I already kind of did that with the team breakdowns, and two, I need to get this video out. we are really pushing the clock for this one. Okay, next up, Fear X. So I think that this is going to be interesting because I'm probably going to have the Fear X players higher than most people do. So first thing, Clear A tier. I actually think that Clear is much better than people give him credit for. He was on, like, ever since he joined Fear X, the team has been somewhat mediocre, and Clear has not necessarily been that great. But I think that the better the team has gotten, the more I'm able to get out of Clear, the more that I can see his strengths, because as the team improves, they can trust him more to really go wild on all of the picks that he's especially good at. He's a great Renekton player. He is great at playing various amounts of different carries. He is willing to pick a lot of ranged top bullies and get his team advantages. And now that the team is more stable, I feel like Clear has been better. I also just think that Clear is a very solid player. I don't see him make very many crazy mistakes. So I always feel like I can trust him to play the champion that he picks and do well. I think that he's really good at building space, you know, all the stuff that top laners need to be good at. Do I think that he's at the level of any of the players in Gen G? No, but do I also think that he's getting kind of criminally underrated on a lot of the tier lists that I'm seeing? Yes. Okay, next, Raptor. I'm also going to put Raptor in A tier, but notably behind Clear. So there's a lot of people who are very high on Raptor, and in my team breakdown, I kind of said, you know, last year I wasn't really impressed with Raptor. This split, he did have a very impressive playoffs run. So normally for me, Raptor would be one of those players that I'm a little bit more skeptical of. Like in 2025, I thought he was kind of a Nefiri one trick and wasn't that great at the other AD fighters. And this year has been the same. I still think that he's not amazing at the AD fighters. Like, he's had occasional good games on various champions, like he had like a good Trundle game, for example. But generally, I think that Raptor is not phenomenal at AD fighters, which tend to be meta. But the one difference is that like the mid lane pool is a little bit more flexible now because of some patch changes, and so that frees up what you can play jungle. And Raptor has been very impressive on other junglers. He had a really nice Zac game. He had a good Maokai game. He played a Lilia game. Like there's when it comes to kind of like the weirder champions, like Dr. Mundo, he had a good Dr. Mundo game. Like when he's playing these champions, I actually do think he's pretty good. And I think that was a big reason as to why he was so successful and earned so many player of the matches in LCK playoffs, was because he really was able to showcase his flexibility. You know, I still don't exactly trust him if he locks in a Pantheon or a Wukong. Like if he picks one of those champions, I think he's probably closer to like a high B tier player. But for his versatility and for the fact that he's on a hot streak right now, I'm down to put him in A. I still would have him below Clear though. Next up, Vikla. It's the year of Vikla. This is his year. He's the greatest mid laner in the world right now, and that's why I am putting Vikla in B tier. So this guy is, don't get me wrong, this is, with the exception of potentially his rookie summer split, and even then I still think his rookie summer split was a little bit overrated. I would say that you could make an argument that this split has been his best split, so I'm not trying to diminish the fact that I think he's actually been very good, but I don't think that you can overlook the fact that for a solid 3-year stretch from 2023 to 2025, he was arguably just not good at all, and even bordering on bad, like really just lower tier. Like we saw him struggle in the LCS, he struggled in the LPL, he came back to the LCK in 2025, and I thought that he was like a bottom 2, bottom 3 mid laner. He was splitting time with Daystar. There were people who really wanted Daystar to play instead, but Vikla's been playing well enough that he's kind of earned his spot back. I mean, to be honest, like some of the champions he's pretty good on, like the Akali and the Sylas have looked good, for example. There are other champions that he plays that I don't really think have been good. So the two that I'll point out are Azir and Twisted Fate. I think he's played Azir a lot of times, but every single time he picks it, I'm not necessarily impressed. I don't think he's an elite mid laner on Azir. And then the Twisted Fate. Recently, Fear X have been playing more Twisted Fate. They played it twice in playoffs. And both times that he played it, I really just didn't think he felt like a natural TF player at all. Like I'm remembering specifically, there was one instance where there was a super tense situation around a Drake, and Vikla flash gold carded a Nautilus and killed himself, and then Fearx had to play the situation 4v5, and then they managed to win anyway. But it's stuff like that. Like I feel like I see that kind of stuff from Vikla a lot in mid and late game when he's on the champions that he's not super comfortable on, and it really makes me just not want to trust him at all. So for me, I think that Vikla is the worst player on the team, but he has still been good enough that I think that he will be fine at the tournament relative to the rest of the competition. Then Diablo, gonna put an S. I mean, if I'm gonna listen to my heart, I would probably put Diablo like here. But I think if you wanted to put Diablo behind all five members of Gen G, that's like also totally fine. I do think you have to draw the line at Ruler though. I think that across the 7 games that Gen G and FearX played in playoffs, Ruler was clearly the better AD carry, and you could argue that Ruler has the better team, but I do think on an individual level, like based on what they were doing in lane, based on how they were navigating mid and late game, I did just think that Ruler was the better player. So I'm not willing to move Diablo above Ruler yet. Diablo, he's obviously one of the great prodigies of today's game. He's a phenomenal player. His rookie year was last year. He broke onto the scene with these insane mechanics, insane aggression. He still does all of that. He can put the team on his back and carry if they need him to. When you think about and talk about the SphereX roster and why they were able to make it as far as they did, Diablo has to be the name at the forefront of your mind. And I think that if FearX are going to have any chance to win first stand, it's going to be through their bot duo. And I say bot duo because I think that Kellen's been the second best player on the team. So I'm going to move Kellen to the top of A tier. I'm not going to have Kellen in S tier. I think that's too far. But in 2025 and 2026, I think that Kellen has been great. And I think that he is getting drastically underrated because of his time on DK. A lot of people remember his DK years in 23 and 24 where he had some especially notably bad performances, although I was thinking about it a little bit more. And I mean, I guess I'll start by saying that the thing that Kellen is really good at is that he's really good at playing facilitators and playing for his bot duo. And what I mean by that is the champions that he plays, the champions that he excels at. He's really good at enchanters. He is really good at ranged supports who want to win 2v2 lanes. So regardless of what style Diablo wants to play in terms of like getting himself ahead or like protecting himself, Kellen is really, really good at all of those champions. I think that you could make an argument that he's the best enchanter player in the world right now. When I think back to all of Kellen's lowlights from his time on DK, I'm always imagining engaged champions. Like for example, there was an Alistar moment where he completely inted an Alistar play like near a bot tier 2 or something, and that was one of the plays that everybody was mocking him for. So I don't necessarily think he's as good at those champions, and then so that's kind of what's keeping him out of S tier. But it's like if we were only playing enchanters and lane dominant 2v2s, you could put Kellen in S tier if you really wanted to. That is a strong suit. He's really good at that stuff. I just think that, kind of like the engagers, the tankers, the melee supports are strong enough that other supports like Duro, who are way more flexible than Kellen, will succeed more at this tournament. Moving on to BLG. Okay, so this is where things get a little bit weird for me. Bin has been pretty good. He has definitely turned it up from this split than he did from last year, where he kind of had a stint from last year. I don't know if I'm seeing the vision that everybody else is seeing, where they're saying that like, oh, Bin is back, he's the best top player in the world, BLG are contenders. I don't feel it. I'm going to put Bin at the top of A tier, above Kellen, Clear, and Raptor. Like I think that Bin is absolutely better than Clear. Bin definitely feels stronger this split, but I do think that people are overrating BLG's success a little bit. I think that the regular season was pretty rough for them. I don't think that there was a clear top level team in LPL for all of regular season other than maybe AL, but then AL got the playoffs and they weren't as good either. So the main thing for me is that Bin still makes a lot of the same silly mistakes that he made before, and it's just that the highs that he's shown when he's been really good are finally coming out again. He's finally being able to take over games. He completely dumpstered Xiaozhu in grand finals, for example. But yeah, I don't view Bin as a very consistent player. I never know what I'm going to get from him on a game-to-game basis. So that does keep him much lower than Keen for me. If you wanted to argue to put Bin at the bottom of S, you could, and I might even move him there, because I'm also probably going to put Xiaozhu into A tier now that I'm thinking about it, and it might feel weird to put Bin and Xiaozhu in the same tier after Bin annihilated him in the series. But I don't know, maybe having Bin at the top of A tier and Xiaozhu at the bottom of A tier will be good enough. But yeah, generally, the thing that's keeping Bin out of S tier for me is that I'm questioning if the level of the LPL is really that high, because I was not super impressed with the LPL's gameplay this split. And then I also just want to see more consistency from him. I want to see less mistakes. I don't want to see him taking 3 turret shots and dying again, which he didn't do, but he did take multiple turret shots and need to flash away from the turret. So, we almost had a repeat of the Worlds incident. So, yeah, okay. Next is Shun. I will put Shun here, I think. I think that Shun has been fine. I don't think that Shun this split is as good as he was in the prime BLG years, like in 23 and 24. I don't even think Shun has been as good as he was in split 1 of 2025 on JDG. But I do think that Shun has been good, and the biggest thing that he has done for this team is that he's brought back some of the style that they had lost before. It felt like BLG's biggest issue in 2025, especially in split 3, was that they could not decide on their identity. They could not figure out which lane that they wanted to play for. They had been spending a lot of time on tanks, for example, as they tried to play more through bot. And I feel like as soon as Shun got back to the team, PLG they immediately reverted in a good way to how they were playing before, in the sense that all 3 lanes felt like they could play way more free. Of course, part of that is also due to Viper, who does have the ability to play a pretty solid weak side game if you need him to, but Shun has a really good eye for early game stuff. Like, he's really good at invades. He is good at knowing when his presence in a lane will be able to flip a matchup, and with that kind of strength to his game, it has unlocked Bin to be able to play more of the carries and volatile picks that he wants to play, for sure. So I think that you can definitely honor Shun for that kind of stuff. I still just think that, like, on an individual level, he does have some games that are a bit on the underwhelming side. He has a few mid and late games where he makes some mistakes that make me think that maybe he's a bit asleep at the wheel. So I don't think that Shun is supposed to come in being some hyper elite crazy jungler, but I do think that he is very good, and he is very, very good on the team and is making the team better than they were last year. Knight, I'm gonna throw into S tier. How far do I want to put him? I think I'll put Knight like here. I think that Knight is a very solid player. He has the same primary strengths that he had last year, which was, and the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that, which is that he can just play a ridiculous amount of champions at a super, super high level. So, for example, this split, he's logged unique games on 14 champions. Now, notably, one of those champions was Azir, and this guy just cannot play Azir. So, in reality, he has unique games on 13 champions. But, like, on those 13 champions, he's extremely dominant. BLG, with their drafts, a lot of times, they'll pick one player that they want to play through, and then they'll kind of funnel their entire strategy around that player. And they do this with all their players. They do it with Bin, they do it with Viper. But when they do it with Knight is when I think the team is at their strongest. So if Knight is playing a Ziggs or a Ryze or a LeBlanc or something like that, where he really wants the team to be hovering him, or he wants the team to rotate around him so that way he can get the most out of his champion, whenever BLG decide to do that, BLG shit stomp the other team. Like, these are the most dominant games that BLG play are when they're playing through Knight, and Knight is the one with the lead, and Knight is the one getting the resources. I think that's no coincidence. I do just think that Knight is still the best player on the team. Notably, he did kind of get his ankles broken by Hong Q like 4 times this split. I know that Hong Q solo killed him at least 3 times, but maybe it was more than that. But it just feels like every single time Knight lanes against Hong Q, he gets completely rage baited and then just goes for the most ridiculous trade patterns you've ever seen, and he just kills himself. So, that's a knock against him for sure. But, against every other mid laner, he's been very good. So, yeah, I still have him in S tier. Viper. Okay, this one is, I don't know how people are going to feel about this, but I'm going to put Viper in A tier below Bin. I think that for me, Bin has been the second best player on the team, somewhat because Bin has stepped up, but also because I feel like we have not been seeing from Viper the player that everybody was expecting when he joined BLG. I don't necessarily think this is Viper's fault. I think that the team, in the same way that he has not quite adapted to the team, I don't think the team is quite adapted to him either. It feels like there's some kind of disconnect when it comes to BLG trying to play through Viper, and because of that, the team has leaned more towards, hey, can we give Bin a Gwen game and then put all of our pressure topside, and then we can have Shun pass topside and play that way, or hey, can we give Knight a Ziggs counter pick and then play for a massive mid lane gold lead? Like, I feel like BLG are more successful when they do that than when they try to play through Viper, because just something's not quite clicking yet. I do think that Viper brings value to the team. The fact that he can play weak side allows the team to have more success if they want to play for other lanes, as opposed to somebody like Elk, who does want more resources and more time to kind of play his own game. So I think Viper has been good for the team in that regard, but I don't think it would be out of the question to say that there were multiple other AD carries in LPL who outperformed Viper in the split 1, and I'm kind of mostly waiting to see, okay, as BLG has more time with this core in split 2, split 3, will they figure it out and becomes super dominant, because at that point then we might be able to move some of these players back up to S tier. But until I see it, I don't believe that PLG are going to be that insane of a team. Okay, and then finally we have On, and I'm going to put On. Oh, where do I want to put On? I think I will put him. Okay, so actually this is interesting because if we're going based off of his regular season split, I would probably put him like here. But if you factor in the international debuff, then you might move him lower. I'm usually not one to do that. I try to avoid using past internationals if possible, because I really just want to go off of the merit of what the players accomplished in the split leading up to, or like the split/year leading up to that international. This has been a better year for On for sure. He's made a nice bounce back. He's had some games where he's been able to carry. He also still has some really bad games, but generally I think if you're expecting On to come to this tournament and run it down the same way that he did at MSI and Worlds in 2025, we're probably not going to get that. I say probably because there's always a chance. You never know with this guy. I have no idea. Maybe he'll smurf, maybe he'll int. Generally, like, my feelings are that I think that On has been good enough that I don't want to make him the worst player on the team, but I also don't think that he's better than Kellen. I think he's much less consistent, still has a lot of random terrible ints every now and then. I do want to point out that I may have a spicy take when I get to the team rankings, but I'll just say right now I've got 5 BLG players rated pretty solidly higher than the Fear X players, but I do think that BLG have problems as a unit, like as a 5-man unit. I think that their players are all individually very talented. This BLG team are not very clean in mid and late game, and I think that this Fear X roster has a lot more consistency in their play, and I think that they have a much clearer direction of how they want to navigate games. So just know that I think that these two teams, Fear X and BLG, are closer than these player ratings would dictate, and we can go over that later. Okay, getting into JDG. All right, Xiaozhu. Xiaozhu I'm going to put at the bottom of A tier. I think that Xiaozhu is good enough to be A tier. Like, he's a very solid player, but I don't think that he's super insanely talented the same way that other people do. Like, I'm going to have Xiaozhu definitely below clear. Which I know that is not an opinion that very many people share. Yeah, Xiaozhu, he kind of started out the split being solid on a number of champions. Like, he was one of the first really good Zehen players. He is probably the best Renekton player in the world. Every time this guy gets Renekton, he's like shitting on people and dropping like 9 kills, or he's going like 5-0 or some shit. And he's just completely dominant. Like, he makes Renekton look like it does way more damage than it does. So credit to him for that. But I think that generally, if you get him kind of off those champions and you play him on other things, he's good but not great. And that's kind of my opinion on Xiaozhu for the most part. I think that he's a good player, but I don't think that he is great at very many things yet. This is still his first year on a team that you could consider to be like a good team. All of his other years were on these dog shit last place bottom feeder LPL teams, so the environment probably wasn't very good for him to improve. So I think there's a chance that he could improve very quickly, but I don't think he's there just yet. I think it really showed, especially in his matchups against BLG in playoffs, where Finn just completely manhandled him. So yeah, I think I have a bit of a lower opinion on Xiaozhu than most people, but I do still think he is very strong. One game that I think some people are thinking about when they think like, oh, Xiaozhu is really good and I'm just not as impressed, was he played this Aurora game in playoffs where he had this insanely good team fight near the end of the game that brought the momentum back in his team's favor. And then he ended up receiving player of the game for that match. And like, I think that that's the thing that a lot of people focused on, was like, holy shit, look at how hard he smurfed this team fight. Like, his mechanics and team fighting is crazy. But the 25 minutes or so or whatever before that fight happened, he was completely AFK and getting nothing accomplished in the Aurora matchup that he should have been favored in. So it's like, I think like there are some things that I just noticed about him where I'm like, I wish I could see a little bit more. Okay, Junja. I think I'm gonna put Junja in B tier below Vikla. So I know it feels really weird because Junja's obviously a great player, and he's shown that he has the ability to be great in the past, and he's also a super international riser. Like, again, I really don't want to base my opinions on past internationals if possible, but it is worth mentioning that Junja, at the past like 5 international tournaments that he's been to, he's really smurfed and been one of, if not the best players on his team. So I think if he does play much better, then that wouldn't be surprising. But I do have to mention that he has been, for sure, the worst player on this JDG team. The fit as soon as he went back to LPL was super weird, because it just felt like he was never on the same page as his team. It got so far to the point where the team wanted to bench him, and they wanted to sign Tien, was like a player that they were considering for a while. And, like, I feel like the team doesn't feel comfortable with the way that he plays. He doesn't feel comfortable with the way that his teammates play. He makes a lot of mistakes. He will be like there'll be like timer. Like, okay, one of the things that I really notice is that sometimes his teammates have a timer where they really want to play aggressive in their lane, and normally a jungler would drop a camp to like hover for that lane so they can play on that timer. Junja, it feels like he's kind of blind to that a little bit. Like he'll just keep farming his camps, or he'll try to make a play for another completely unrelated lane, and then he's just like leaving out his lanes to dry on timers where they could be getting significant advantages. So like that's something that I noticed. Another thing that I've noticed is that Junja, sometimes he looks at an objective and he just decides that he's going to get it no matter what. And then so he'll just start hitting it, and then it'll be like a really bad objective for him to try to hit, and then he just kind of dies. And the rest of his team is like, we can't be here, and then they'll leave. And then Junja won't leave, or like he'll like start to leave, but he'll be a few seconds late on the call to leave, and then he'll just die. Or like the enemy team will have control over an objective, and Junja will just walk up to it and try to contest it, and then he'll die for that. So it's like a lot of his positioning decisions have been weird and stuff. But yeah, I think Junja's been super underwhelming this split. Definitely been the worst player on the team. Okay, Hongq I'm gonna put here. I think Hongq has had a lot of different strengths and weaknesses. So his strengths, he is a fantastic laner. He was dumpstering pretty much everybody in lane phase. Like he solo killed Knight multiple times, as I was kind of saying earlier. He solo killed Xiaohu. He has dominant lane states against pretty much any mid laner in the league. He has other problems. At the start of the split, he was getting caught out on sideways a bunch. He was getting caught out when trying to like rotate with his team, or when he was trying to connect with his team, people would pick him out and stuff. Those issues have decreased as the split has gone on. Like he has improved, but I still think that he's not quite there yet. I think he needs one more split before he can potentially break into being one of those like top three or like very strong LPL mid laners. So needs more time, but very promising. I would not be surprised if he can make some super flashy stuff happen. I guess it's also worth mentioning that I think that Hongq is a really special Rise player. I love watching him play Rise. I think that the way that he uses Rise Ultimate is so creative in ways that I've never seen other players use. Like he just finds like these crazy realm warp angles that I never would have thought were possible. Super high respect on Hongq, but I just think he needs another split or two. Gala. Okay. Where do I want to put Gala? I'm gonna put Gala like here. So it hurts me. I spent all of 2025 trying to spread Gala propaganda onto people. I thought that Gala was phenomenal in 2025. I thought that even though IG were not placing the best, that he was a clear top 3 AD carry in the world and competing with Ruler and Viper. So when he joined JDG, I thought for sure he was going to be the best player on the team. Unfortunately, it has not been that. His form has been somewhat mediocre. I think that he has been probably like the fourth best AD carry. Like I think it would be fair to say that at least in regular season, that Hope was better than him for sure. So yeah, definitely not the form I want to see out of him. We still see flashes sometimes. Like he still has individually good games every now and then. Like he had a nice Kog'Maw game. He's had a couple of nice Ashe games, like a good Yunara game every now and then. But you know, it's just, he had a really good Kalista game also. But it's just he's just not dominant in the same way that he was. He has way more games where he just feels invisible or is making kind of like silly mistakes in mid and late game. So lower on Gallo this split than I was before. And finally, Vampire. In a strange twist of fate, I think Vampire's been the best player on the team. There was a comment. So I was actually like glazing Vampire in my JDG team breakdown, and there was a comment that somebody made where they were like, I don't know why Poro thinks Vampire is so good. I don't know if Poro watched the split. Vampire is running it down. Yes, of course Vampire is running it down. Vampire always runs it down. That's like his whole entire thing. Vampire is the run it down guy. Like he will just have like these crazy stupid mistakes every now and then. Like, oh god, didn't he have like one of the worst tier 1 Bard games that was played all year? So yeah, like for sure, I can see the angle. I can understand why people are not a fan of him, but I think that people also need to pay attention to kind of like the small things that he does. Like he's extremely good when it comes to objective setups. Like I think that JDG are a very good objective team, which is kind of crazy because Hongq and Junja were not good objective players on CFO. And then so the fact that JDG is so good at rotating, you know, I'm trying to look into like, okay, who could be doing this? And something that I've noticed from Vampire, and this is probably from his time on WE, which is a very objective and team fight centric team, is that Vampire plays extended setups very well. Like the timings where he goes for his vision lines and the ways in which he rotates based on what the rest of his teammates are doing, like whether they want to base or whether they want to play safe for a wave. Like he's very good at reading all of that and playing around his team for that. And because of that, you won't really see him ever committing egregious ints during dead spaces. Like he'll int a lot in other ways, but he never ints in a way that just like kills his entire team's momentum. Like JDG generally are a very resilient team because a lot of their players tend to not make those kind of stupid in-between moment mistakes. Yeah, a lot of respect for Vampire in that regard. I also just think he's had some fantastic games. Like he had, I think it was the Seraphine game against It was either the Seraphine game against AL or it was probably that one where I just thought that he played extremely well from start to finish. Like every once in a while, Vampire will have a game where he's just completely smurfing from minute one until the time that the Nexus explodes. And there are not very many supports out there who can kind of play a game in the zone the entire time. Like I think that's something that Carry is really good at doing, for example. So I think that Vampire is way better than most other people do. I think that I'm super excited to see what he could do on the international stage, and yeah, I'm gonna have him disproportionately higher than people might expect me to have him. With all of the good teams out of the way, let's start talking about the other teams. Okay, G2. Broken Blade. Where do I want to put Broken Blade? I'm gonna put Broken Blade like here in B tier. I do want I guess I should have said this already, but I think that if a player is in like B tier or C tier, I would consider them to be like a good player, like especially B tier. I think that B tier players are super solid players for the most part, and then C tier are like players that I think are completely fine and yeah, I would say that you wouldn't really get to players that I think are like not at an international level until like D tier. So if I have players in C tier and above, I generally think that they like belong here and they have the chance to be pretty strong. So Broken Blade. So I guess I'll say this because I don't want to repeat myself every single time. Every single member of G2, with no exception, looked way better in playoffs than they did in regular season. I think that the entire team had a massive glow up in playoffs. Now that I've said that for Broken Blade, I'm just not going to say that ever again. When I talk about these G2 players, I'm kind of only referencing playoffs. Broken Blade has been stronger in playoffs than he was for a lot of different portions of last year. I feel like the flair that he had when he was at his best is back, in the sense that he can play this wide array of champions that all kind of counter whatever the meta threats are. So he's been playing Yasuo if it calls for it. He's still holding on to his Kled pick. He is still like an innovator who is willing to just pick whatever if he thinks that it'll win. He had some really nice Gwen games, like especially he had a Gwen game against KC where it was just like a great game from start to finish. Like I think that Broken Blade's strengths are the type of strengths that you really want a Western team to have if you want them to have the ability to take down an Eastern team, like the ability to be able to prep champions that those teams aren't ready for and get advantages that the other teams aren't used to playing around. Like that type of stuff I think is really valuable. It is worth mentioning that sometimes Broken Blade has faltered at past internationals. Like he had the disaster MSI 2025, obviously, and like before that, people were already criticizing him for not being able to hold up to Eastern top laners at all. So I think that could be a concern, but generally, I would have faith in Broken Blade to be like a solid player. Skewmond, okay, Skewmond has been very, very good. Like Skewmond, this has been like a great glow up year for them. I said in my G2 breakdown, I'm gonna rate Skewmond really highly, and I did this for MSI last year, and then he completely let me down and did not play that well. But I'm gonna let him fool me again. I'm gonna put Skewmond in A tier. I think I will even put him like here. Sure, fuck it, why not? I'll put him above Raptor. I'm a Raptor denier. Let's see what the people think about that. So Skewmon has been insane this split. It feels like he's gone through like a massive glow up. He is playing much better around his team and specifically around mid lane. It feels like he's finding a lot more mid lane timers to help Caps play the game in ways that he was not doing last year. I also think that Skewmon has been much better at putting the team on his back and carrying if he has to. He played an amazing Zehen jungle game against Mkoy, for example, I can bring out, but just generally Skewmon individually has been great for the entire playoff stretch. I think that he can be very good. I'm like very high on Skewmon coming into this tournament. I'm also high on Caps. I think the Caps is super good. Where do I want to put Caps? Where do I want to put him? Think he's been better than Hongqiu for sure. Don't think he's as good as Knight and Chovy. I'm down to put Caps like here. I think that Caps has also been an extremely solid player. He's kind of the engine that makes the team go. He has been extremely clutch in playoffs. There are so many moments where it feels like a game is on a nice edge for G2 and the person who steps up and carries the entire situation is Caps. I also feel like he's been able to show off more of his stuff because the team has gotten much better at playing around his lane. I think if you want to see a perfect example of this, go watch their game 3 against Mkoy, where Caps was on Ahri and Jojo was on Cassio. I think that was game 3. It was probably game 3. Maybe it wasn't. But it was Caps Ahri versus Jojo Cassio. The way that G2 played around mid lane to make sure that Caps could survive that matchup and be effective in the later team fights was like really, really nice to watch. Like it's something that I don't see from Western teams very often. So super solid on that front. Big fan of what Caps has been doing this split. Hans, put Hans here. I think that Hans is a very solid player for Western standards. He's generally a good AD carry when he has to match up against other like decent to good AD carries. I still have no faith in him to like win lane or ball out against any of the Eastern teams. I haven't seen him do it in a really, really long time. Like G2's made it to a lot of internationals, but I don't think I've seen Hans actually play a dominant series since like MSI 24 against top esports. And even then you could argue that Mickey was the one who was doing the heavy lifting out of the two of them. So yeah, I think that Hans is generally, he's got a little bit more of a passive mindset. Even if he's playing champions like Caitlyn and Draven, I think he has a little bit more of a passive mindset these days, is influencing games a lot less. You could say that a solid part of that is because the team wants to play through caps and like through Broken Blade's weird picks, which is totally fair. At the end of the day, even if you do say that, it still just means that Hans is not having that much of an impact in his team's wins or losses. And then so I just think of him as kind of like a stock standard fine player and not much else. Then you've got Lebrov. I'm going to put Lebrov here. I think that Lebrov is also an underrated player. I think that his biggest strength has always been when he was on BDS and stuff, was he was good at playing around as jungler. He was good at rotating around with whatever his jungler wanted to do and making sure that the team got extra power with whatever rotations they made in that vein. Skimond was kind of a very AFK jungler last year, and then so Lebrov's strengths kind of fell to the wayside. And then people would kind of tunnel in on the fact that like, oh, Lebrov's not doing anything. Oh, look at that, he made a stupid mistake. Ah, man, this guy's dog shit. You know, like that's what people would do. But I think that now that Skimond has blossomed into a better player, we're able to see Lebrov's strengths again. And Lebrov will have some games where it feels like he's completely taking over. Could say the same thing about him that I said about Skimond, which is that I've really been enjoying watching him play around mid lane, especially. I think that a lot of his mid lane rotations and like the timers where he like opens mid after a reset and stuff have been very solid and are part of the reason why Caps looks as strong as he does. Yeah, generally what I would say for G2 is that I think that their team, at least in the sense of like their early games and like the direction that they want to play for, they feel like a pretty well-oiled machine. And when I say that, it might sound kind of weird because G2 is also a throw-prone team. Like G2 had some pretty bad throws against KC in Grand Finals, for example, but I do like watching the way that this team plays out their comps at least like in early and mid games. It feels like everybody on the team knows what they want to do, knows where they need to be, knows what their role is within the team. So that's all nice and solid. But yeah, not much else to say about there. Okay. Team Secret Whales. Pun. People, I think I had Pun in like D tier on my world's tier list, but I'm going to move him much higher this time. I think I'm going to put Pun like fucking here. Yeah. So Pun this has been a complete turnaround year for him because I was completely convinced that Pun was just a weak side tank player. Like the only things that he would play last year were like Sion, Ornn, Cassante, you know, load into the game, go down 10 CS in lane, not really do that much later, very underwhelming. I'm going to blame that completely on Coach Gap because Secret Whales changed their coach from a coach that I'm not a fan of at all to a coach that I'm pretty like indifferent towards. And this coaching change, like Putin feels like a completely different player. Now he's a counterpick demon, which is shit that he was not doing last year. He's playing like Olaf, he's playing Volibear, he's playing Set, he's picking these crazy champions with a lot of agency, and he's destroying the enemy top laner. Like I really need to stress, like for example, some of you guys who watch international tournaments might be familiar with Kiaya, who's the top laner for GAM, who has shown up and been very solid on occasion. Pun picked Volibear into Kiaya's and Bessa, I think it was, and he was up like 2k gold in lane phase. Like it was crazy. He was being super aggressive. He I think he might have even like solo killed a couple of times, but like he had taken the entire turret like super early on in the game and then ran the entire game. Like he's played Volibear 3 or 4 times and completely dominated the game from start to finish in all of them, to the point where teams just started permabanning it against him even in game one. Like they don't want him to game one blind pick Volibear top. Like that's a crazy sentence. Like that's how good he is on that pick. So I think that the team is using Pun's strengths way better now, and he's just been a very solid dominant laner. So I think there's a chance that Pun could match up against a top laner like Broken Blade and then just like win lane hard. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. Next up, Histo. Histo's the best player on the team for sure. I'm going to put Histo maybe like here. I think that Histo is mechanically extremely talented and has a very good eye for gank angles. Like gank angles, dive angles, ways to progress the game. He's super good at all of that. He plays very well around D-Ray and like trying to unlock D-Ray around the map, so that way they can make like 4-man plays and stuff. Yeah, I think I'm already known as a pretty heavy Histo believer. I was also singing his praises a lot last year in Split 3 and stuff, so I don't think much needs to be said for why I would have him this high. D-Ray, okay. So D-Ray was bad at Worlds last year. Let's just get this out of the way. He was probably the worst mid laner at the entire tournament. Like, I understand that. his lane phase was pretty bad. He was getting like 8 CS a minute, getting solo killed all the time, taking these terrible trades, like borderline running it down. But I'm putting D-Ray in B tier because I think that the main reason why D-Ray struggled at Worlds was coach gap. I don't know why he got Galio 3 times and Aurora twice, or whatever it was, or maybe it was the other way around. Like I don't know why the coach of the 6 games they played put Dire on Aurora and Galio in 5 of them, but like that's just ridiculous to me because those are not the champions that he plays. So like he got those champions locked in for him, and he was losing his lane and then doing nothing later on. That's because the champions that he plays are like he's either playing these like super mobile champions that want to like thrive in chaos and team fights, or he's playing champions that are really proactive and can move around the map, or he's playing the very specific control mage style. So like his best champions are the Orianna Syndra control mages, the Akali and Sylas, like the hypermobile mid laners who want to make flashy stuff happen. He is insanely good at Rise. He's really good at like moving Rise around the map and like making a bunch of like overload plays or dive plays or like side lane plays, stuff like that. He's really good at that. He's really good at Ari, which is another champion that has a lot of flexibility in terms of whether she can go for picks or like pop off in a team fight and stuff like that. Like these are his strong champions. He does not play the other champions that other teams play. Like he doesn't play Azir, he doesn't play Talia, he doesn't play Galio, he doesn't play Aurora. Like you cannot put him on these champions and expect him to perform. And I think that's the biggest reason why he was not great at Worlds, but generally, when Secret Whales play, D-Ray is the engine that makes the team go. They have like a very formulaic approach where it's like Histo will play for D-Ray to unlock D-Ray on the map. So that way Histo and D-Ray can then play together and play for one of the side lanes. And then whoever gets fed off of that, and it could be literally anybody, whoever gets fed off of that will then take on the brunt of carrying the team. And the majority of the time that they're doing that, the person who is taking the carry burden is Eddie. So Eddie is somebody who I have been on record saying that I think that he's got a lot of problems, like to the point where I would almost want to put him in C tier. If this was last year, I would put him in C tier. For this tournament, I'm going to hesitantly put him at the bottom of B tier because Eddie, a lot of times, will be put in a position where he has like 5k or 6k more gold than anybody else on his team, and it is his job to carry because that's kind of how the cookie crumbled when Secret Whales made all of their early and mid game plays. Eddie was the one who got fed, and to their credit, Secret Whales, they won the split. They carried a lot of those games. Eddie felt pretty solid for the most part. The problem is that Eddie is also prone to running it down brutally and solo losing his team games sometimes. Like there's really no way around it. I think that Eddie, every now and then, a lot last year and less this year, but definitely still noticeable, will find himself in positions in games where he's just like standing in a really bad spot, or he gets like caught out in a bad way and then he dies and then the entire game is just over, or the entire lead that they had is thrown away in an instant. So Eddie is not a player that I find to be very reliable. I never really trust him when he has the lead. I think a lot of that was due to kind of like me having PTSD from what he was doing last year, and this year I do think he's been more solid, so I'm willing to give him a chance. Just like baseline, Eddie's mechanics are great. Like he has really good mechanics, and it's just like sometimes he does not use those mechanics in the best way and will lose the entire game. So yeah. Then finally you have BA. I think BA is a fine support. I think that he like melds well with the team. He's good at snap engaging. He is like a generally fine player. He can play most things that you would want him to be able to play. He's just not a player that really ever has interested me, or who I think has ever had like these like amazing support games or anything like that. I just think that he's a whatever support. I don't think he's necessarily any better than other good VCS support players. Let's move on to LYON. Dokla, I'm gonna put in B tier actually. I think that Dokla is a better player than other people think he is. So Dokla, he's got 2 strengths. His first strength is that he always knows exactly what his role is within a game, and then he can perform that role very well. So regardless of what champion you give him, whether it's Rumble or Mbessa or Sion or Aurelia or Vayne or Varus, like no matter what champion you give him, he knows what his champion is supposed to do, and he performs those champions' duties pretty reliably. So that's strength number 1. And then strength number 2 is the fucking weird champions that I was saying. Like Dokla can play weird shit and he can play it well. So in past years, he was somebody who wanted to play like Jace top a lot. He wanted to play Yone top. Like he wanted to pick these like he was one of the only players who was willing to play Akshan top. Like he would pick these like crazy picks that he thought were either like very good for his lane or very good for the game, and then he would try to find as much advantages as he could with those. And he didn't really do that as much on 100 Thieves because that wasn't what the team needed him for, but LYON experimented around with it quite a bit and it did look pretty solid. Like he earned, not rightfully, it should have gone to Inspired, but he earned a player of the match in playoffs because he had a series, it was against Team Liquid, where his wins were on Varus, Aurelia, and Vayne. And like the Aurelia game was kind of whatever, but the Varus game was pretty good, and the Vayne game was very good. So like I think that the when you're playing against Dokla, like it puts a lot of stress on teams because like yes, he can just play Scion or Rumble and play well, but he can also, but you also have to be wary that he can just pick a hard carry and then try to carry the entire game. And like, you know, that's something that you do have to think about in draft, that and it like kind of warps the entire draft around him in a way that's always going to be beneficial for LYON. So yeah, I'm higher on Dokla than a lot of people are. Inspired. How high do I want to put Inspired? I'm gonna put Inspired here. I'm gonna put him all the way at the top of A tier. I think that Inspired is the best Western player in the world. I think that he is a top 5 jungler in the world right now. He is remarkably consistent. He rarely makes any mistakes. He has like clear game plans. And when I say clear game plans, I don't mean predictable game plans because his game plans aren't predictable either. He always knows when to switch up his clear paths and like what timers that he can go for to get advantages for his lane. So generally, like if the game and the comp is good for it, he's super good at identifying certain advantages that the comp can get, and then he goes out and gets them, and then LYON has the lead that they were supposed to have. And then he individually is also very good at maintaining that lead and playing out that lead super well. He's also he's like one of the only Western players who consistently can play well against Eastern competition. He did kind of get his face kicked in by Owner in the best of one that FlyQuest played against T1 at Worlds last year, but I think a lot of that was also due to the fact that the team was kind of crumbling internally. But yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence that this LYON roster with Inspired on it was able to win despite the fact that some of the other players were more inconsistent. And getting to that, I think that the other 3 players on LYON all have issues. So Saint been put in C tier. Saint has been super on and off this split. Occasionally, like in playoffs, he had some good series, but or sorry, not even good series. He had like good individual games, but in regular season, he was running it down a lot. He was making a lot of mechanical mistakes. Like he's mechanically talented, but he was making a lot of mechanical mistakes where he would get solo killed in lane. He would die to ganks he shouldn't be dying to. He was playing like team fights badly. Like he had a number of Azir games where he got way too antsy and tried to go in for like some crazy shuffle, and then he would just kill himself and make the game really hard to play. So I think that Saint is somebody who I don't really trust this split. He's been a little bit too questionable for me, but he's had some good games as well. Like he does have some games where he can pop off and take over. He had a series where he went like 29-1 or some shit across the series. So like that was obviously good. But yeah, generally don't have much faith in Saint. Berserker, I am going to put here, I think. Berserker is another player who I do not trust. I think that mechanically he's very talented, but maybe the I don't know, like maybe the DNS year just like did something to his mental because I feel like he makes a lot more baseline mistakes now than he did than the last time he was in LCS. Like there are a lot of team fights where he'll play the team fight questionably and not get max value, or like he'll die like at the start of the fight. There are some issues that he has like in 2v2 lanes as well. So yeah, issues there. And then Isles, I will put Isles at the bottom of C. What's funny about Isles being here is that I do literally think that if the Poppy game that he played in grand finals did not exist, he would probably be in D tier because Isles has played some really mediocre to bad games this split. Like he had like a really bad Bard performance. I also think that Isles, like he does not have that insane of a ceiling. He's kind of been passed around lower tier LCS teams for a while, and I don't think he's ever looked particularly impressive on those teams. But that said, he's got it in there somewhere to play really good games because he Giga carried a Poppy support game in grand finals, and it was super impressive. So yeah, maybe rethink everything I know about the game, to be honest. Yeah, I am gonna have him in that C tier, but you know, he's fine. I do think that he is for sure the worst player on the team, but not by like a as substantial of a margin as I would have thought heading into the split. Finally, we can talk about Loud. This is part of the reason why I wanted to do this as a complete tier list, because I am going to have these Loud players near the bottom of their roles, like across the board. But I think these players are actually better than a tier list like that would indicate. So being able to put it on here and you guys will be able to see like where I'm placing the players, and maybe it'll make more sense. So Shino, I think, is a good top laner. I personally think that like Loud, their opening series is against LYON, and I know that people will remember back to like, oh, Dokla was in the Merged Americas tournament that like determined who went to Worlds, and he wasn't actually better than the Brazilian top laners who were there. And Shino is better than those players. So there have been people who are saying that they think that Shino will gap Dokla, and I think that like if that's your viewpoint, then that's totally fine and understandable. It's just for me, I would go back to what I was saying about Dokla earlier, which is that I think that LYON is allowing Dokla to play with a lot more freedom than 100 Thieves was, and that like 100 Thieves Dokla was like very limited in what his role on the team actually could be. So I think Dokla is better this year than he was last year. But that said, I do think that Shino is a very good top laner. Like there's a reason why I'm moving him all the way up to B tier, even though it's his like rookie year and stuff. Shino has been the best top laner in CBLOL for sure. He has very good lane phases. He's always up a disproportionate amount of gold over his lane opponent than what the matchup should be getting him. He is always like applying pressure in games. He is like a good team fighter and stuff. My main concern for Shino is that I just, when he goes internationally and he's against a bunch of top laners who are also really good, I do wonder if some of his strengths will kind of become muted in the process. But generally, most people who talk about Loud, especially the CBLOL fan base, will tell you that Shino is kind of the soul of the team and the reason why they believe that Loud can maybe do something at first stand. And I would agree with that. I do think that Shino is the best player on the team. I think if they are going to win games, it will have to be off the back of Shino playing very well. So, yep, giving him the rare CBLOL B tier nod. The rest of the players I'm not going to be as kind towards. So Young Jae, we're going to put him in C tier. I will put him maybe like here. I was really expecting Young Jae to be good when he came into the CBLOL, but it just hasn't been that. I think that, okay, this is maybe not like good for me to say because this is very projection heavy, but part of me wonders if Young Jae did not realize that the CBLOL had leveled up as a region in the past year, because he kind of came in and tried to just like pick hard carries, and then he had like these terrible games. Like he just started out regular season having bad games on carry champions, and so part of me thinks maybe he was expecting to just come to CBLOL and like his baseline floor was going to be good enough that he could shit on everybody. But the reality is that the CBLOL is actually like a solid region nowadays. Like they are a region who from top to bottom could throw hands with LCS, LEC, and LCP like on a good day. And so I think Young Jae came in, he was kind of shell-shocked a bit, did not play that well. And just generally, yeah, not the type of performance I would expect to see from a player of Young Jae's caliber, like a player who I do think should have the ability to be the best jungler in the region, should have the ability to play on a middle of the pack or lower tier team in the LCK or the LPL. So very disappointed in what he showed. So I have him in C tier. Envy, I'm sorry. I have so much respect for what Envy did this split, but I do think that he is the worst player at the tournament. So I'm going to put Envy in D tier, and he's going to be the only player who I have in D tier. So I guess I'll touch on what Envy has done this year. So Loud started the year with a different mid laner named Mago. Mago had a lot of internal issues, and then in playoffs, randomly in the middle of playoffs, abruptly before upper bracket finals, like 2 days before upper bracket finals or some shit, he just left the team. Like he just quit. And then so Loud were in this position where they were playing against Red Canids, who is a team that was projected to be able to win the entire thing. Like Red had just dismantled Furia in the round before that, so people were thinking, oh, Red is going to win the entire tournament. And then so Loud needed an emergency mid lane substitute, and then so they grabbed Envy, who is a longtime CBLOL mid lane veteran. He's somebody who was participating in international tournaments like all the way back in like 2020 and stuff. And Envy was able to come in and he meshed well with the team right away, right out of the gate. He was playing well with the team, and then Loud were able to end their split 6-1, and they won. And it was really cool. I think that Envy, I don't think that there's a single other Brazilian mid laner who you could have subbed in to Loud who would have looked as cohesive with the team as Envy. So I have so much respect for Envy for that. I do, however, think though that Envy is past his prime, and I highly doubt that he can play at the level of the other mid laners that are like on the top teams of their respective regions. So yeah, I have Envy in D tier. I do not think he will perform well at this tournament, but I think that he has been, I think that what he has done this split has been like great. Has been fantastic for the team. Okay, Bull. We will put Bull in. You know what? Fuck it. I'll put Bull in the bottom of B tier. I was not planning on doing this. Like I was planning on putting Bull like near top of C tier, but I think there's a chance. I think that Bull is mechanically good enough. You know, he was kind of he had the same issue as Young Jae where he came in and was kind of like not very good for regular season. Like for the record, for people who didn't watch CBLOL, Loud went what was it, 3-4 in regular season and had some like pretty bad losses as well. And then once they got to playoffs, people kind of ramped up. And I think that like Young Jae did not get that much better in playoffs, but I think Bull did. When in Bull's games against Red Canids, it felt like he was definitely a better AD carry than Rebello, who's not a half bad AD carry himself. So I think that the idea, like I do think that Bull should be the lowest rated AD carry heading into the tournament, but the idea that he could play better than Eddie or Berserker or Hans is not out of the question for me. I would not be super surprised if Bull could step up and like outlane them or out team fight them, you know. So I'm down to move Bull into bottom of B tier, even if he's been a little bit more underwhelming than maybe I would have wanted like a Korean import to be. I don't even necessarily think that Bull was that good in LCK either, but like still I think he's like a fine player. Then finally we've got Redbird, who I will put in C tier above Isles. I'll put him above Young Jae also. I'll put Redbird there. I think that Redbird is somebody who in the past I've been heavily critical of because he is not a player, or in the past he was not a player whose skill set translated well to higher tier competition. Like whenever he played against strong teams internationally, because Redbird's been to a lot of internationals, but so whenever he's played against better teams, he's kind of been exposed for a lot of things. Like he gets picked out a lot and in between moments. His engages were not actually like high enough quality, and so there would be a lot of moments where he would engage and then just it would be like at the wrong moment and he would die. There would be a lot of moments where he would take too much damage in standoffs and like make the game hard for his team to play, and just generally like he would die a lot. Like he would go to an international tournament and he wouldn't accomplish that much and then he would die a lot. This split I've been keeping an extra close eye on Redbird, obviously because Loud won the tournament, so I had to. And he's been better. Like I do think that Redbird has leveled up his game from what I saw from him in 2024, especially. So I'm down to move Redbird a tier higher than I normally would. Like Redbird would normally be a player who I put in B tier, or sorry, that I put in D tier. But like I think that Redbird has found more universally good proactive early game plays and mid game plays. Like I think he's doing more around the map that will actually translate well against better teams. I think that the quality of engages has been higher. Yeah, generally just been more impressed with like his mechanical skill. He does still die a lot. Like he had like an 8 death Nami game. He had a 10 death Nico game. Like he does still have these games where he'll just like walk up and die off cooldown. Like it will happen. Like there will be at least one game at this tournament where he logs like a 0-7 or like a 0-9 or some shit. Like it will happen, but I think that those will be much fewer and far between than they used to be, and I do think that Redbird will have the ability to play some good games at the tournament, so have him higher up than I normally would. So yeah, I think generally this is going to be my tier list heading into first stand, like player wise. I think yeah, I think I'm okay with having Bin and Xiaozhu both in the same tier. I think they're far apart enough from each other in the tier that it is like very clear that I think that Bin is on a higher level than Xiaozhu, so I'm okay with that. Moving on to the teams. Let's speedrun this because I obviously just talked about all the players and I have all the team breakdowns. Gen G, S tier, think they should win. Fear X and BLG, I'm going to have an A tier, and notably, I'm going to have Fear X above BLG. So this is like a hot take that I've kind of had. Like as soon as LCK and LPL ended, this was something that I kind of locked in my head that I knew I was going to say. And there have been a lot of other tier lists that I've been seeing around that have Fear X in fourth. Like people are having Gen G, BLG, JDG, Fear X, and I think that's kind of insane. Like having JDG so solidly above Fear X that Fear X are like consistently fourth. Like I think at the very least, people need to really consider putting Fear X in third. Like this JDG team is not necessarily like an insanely good team or anything. But the reason why I have Fear X in second is because I generally just think that this split, I've been much more impressed with the gameplay in LCK than I have been with the gameplay in LPL. Like, I think that LCK is a higher level region than LPL right now, especially because LPL, that like top four of BLG, AL, JDG, Weibo was very up in the air. Like the teams all had a lot of issues and they were all just like clashing their issues with each other and like losing games against each other and stuff. I think that BLG are like a less consistent team than FearX. So like if you go back to the players, like you'll see like, oh, you know, Knight is higher than Diablo, Bin is higher than Kellen, Viper is higher than Clear, On is higher than Raptor, Shun is higher than Vikla. Like across the board, I have 5 players on BLG who are higher than 5 players on FearX. So individually on a player level, I think BLG's players are better, do have higher ceilings. But the problem is that BLG, that they don't play as well together as a team as I would want them to play. Like they make way more mid and late game mistakes than FearX do. Like I think that FearX have a clearer direction of how they want to play the game, who they want to play for, what their team fights look like, what their setups look like, that kind of stuff. And then also, I mean, like there's just the point of like what more do you want FearX to do? They 3-1 T1, they 3-0 DK. What more does this team have to do to like start getting respect from people? Like if it was T1 who was the second seed, I feel like people would have no problems saying like, oh, Genji T1 S tier, BLG JDG A tier. Like I feel like that would be a lot of the tier list. So I don't understand, other than just having different nameplates, what people wanted this FearX roster to do to be given the respect that they deserve as an LCK 2 seed. Like it feels like all of these people are still treating FearX as, oh, they're like the sixth best team in LCK and they went on a random miracle run. Like, no, they're really fucking good. Like this team destroyed the other teams. They are the clear second best team in LCK right now. Like I don't know what more needs to be proven from them for them to show that. But yeah, I mean, I generally just think that LCK has 3 or 4 teams that I think could all potentially win LPL right now. I just think they're a stronger region. So until proven otherwise, like, yeah, sure, there's totally a chance that BLG will walk up and they'll just shit stomp FearX because they have better mechanical players across the board. That's totally a possibility. You know, there's a possibility that the players on BLG have way more international experience, so that they can show up to first stand, they'll be in the vibe. Maybe there will be people on FearX who don't have the experience who will just start choking. Like that's also a possibility. But based on the merits of what these two teams did in regular season, I genuinely believe that FearX played a better split than BLG did. So I'm going to have them as the second best team. If you want to get like a clearer read on why I think this, you can watch my FearX team breakdown and my BLG team breakdown. I touched on specifically like towards the end of the video when I was talking about the team section, like what I thought about the team as a whole. I touched on why I think that FearX should be like higher than BLG, like at least for my list. Next up, B tier, JDG, G2. So I think G2 is a better team than LYON, which is like kind of the big one, is like, oh, NA or EU. I think G2 is better. I don't care that they threw 2 games against KC in grand finals. Like the amount of leveling up G2 did, the fact that they were able to 3-0 MCoy in the fashion that they did, the fact that they had such massive leads against KC in all 5 games, the fact that like Skewmond is in form, Caps is in form, Lebrov is playing better, Broken Blade is playing better, Hans is like still a solid player. Like I do have more faith in G2 than I do in any of the other non-LCK LPL teams. I do still think that JDG is a better team than them. Across the board, JDG's mechanics are better. I think that JDG's objective setups are super elite. Like as a team, the way that JDG sets up objectives during the dead space, like 3-4 minutes before they spawn, is arguably better than every other team. Maybe it would be second place behind the Gen G, but they're certainly better at it than FearX, BLG, and G2. So like I think that that's a quality for JDG. I keep on saying that JDG is a very resilient team. Like sure, BLG threw games against them. Like BLG had full control of those games and then they just threw. The reason why they're throwing is because JDG does not make very many mistakes in the in-between moments in games. Sure, Hongq can get picked down on side sometimes. Sure, Vampire or Gala might make like some kind of silly mistake. Like these things happen. But generally, JDG is a team who does not make very many mistakes in in-between moments, which means that when you finally do have to like get to the point where you're winning the game against JDG, where you have to prove that your advantage is real, you're going to have to do it in a 5v5 situation where that JDG is set up properly beforehand, and you will have to prove to them that your advantage is good enough to win. And when teams make you do that, it is hard to beat them. So I think that JDG is, for me, for sure the 4th best team, and then I would have G2 in 5th. Next up, how do I want to do this? I'm going to go Secret Whales, LYON, Loud, all in C tier. I think that like I think you can make an argument for this. I do think that Loud is the should be expected to be the worst team at the tournament, but I don't think that they are that much lower level than the NA 1 seed and the LCP 1 seed at this point. Like I do think that CB Lowell's region is at a pretty solid level. I do just have too many question marks around Loud. Like will Shino's great form actually hold up? Will Envy be exposed as a liability at this level? Are Young J and Bull just going to continue shitting the bed? Like is Redbird going to revert to his MSI 24 form? Like, you know, these kind of questions I have, but I do think that Loud, they're a solid team. They're clearly better than Red. Furio was able to beat Sentinels and C9, a faltering C9, but they still beat C9 like very handedly. So I think CB Lowell deserves more respect. Like their 1 seed deserves more respect. I do think that they're worse than LYON, but I would not be surprised if they could do something surprising against LYON. You know, I would not be surprised if they can make it look competitive. I'm going to have Secret Whales above LYON. I do think that I have too many question marks around LYON, specifically around their mid, bot, and support are just a little bit too antsy, a little bit too inconsistent for me. They have Inspired, and Inspired's the GOAT. Dokla has also been very solid for them this year, but a part of me does think that a big reason why LYON were able to win LCS was because C9 just collapsed. Like in grand finals, C9 completely collapsed. Like it's almost like they moved out of the way for LYON to win. So, like for me, I still just LYON doesn't feel like an LCS one seed, if that makes sense. Like there's just like a feeling to me that like LYON is like they're at the strength of like an LCS two seed or a three seed, despite winning. So I don't necessarily view them as highly as I would normally view like a top tier LCS team. And then I also think Secret Royals has improved. I think people are sleeping on this team a bit. D-Ray and Pun will look much better at this tournament than they did at Worlds. Pun didn't really play at Worlds. He played like a little bit at Worlds, but like I think that Pun and D-Ray will both look better than they did at Worlds. I think that Eddie is more consistent. And I just think that generally like the core of the team is very young and they've had another split to improve. And now that they have a taste of winning a split, it's going to do a lot for them. Like mechanically, I think Secret Royals is a more talented team than LYON and Loud for sure. And it's just going to be about can they actually make their mid games clean enough that they're not just like running down mid and late games, which is totally possible. I think that'll be it for this one. I need to like trim this up and post this ASAP because first stand is starting in 2.5 hours. So yeah, that's it. One more look at my player list. Yeah, not much else to say for the outro. I think I have a Patreon. If you want to support me more, you can become a member of that. I have a lot of behind the scenes content. Like I post any scripted videos. I post my video scripts. If you do if I do any Poro commissions, I'll always post my drawing videos on there as well. Sometimes if I make tier lists, I'll put the tier lists on there for everybody to see on the Patreon before I make videos about it. And then if you subscribe to the $10 tier, then I'll draw you a custom Poro. It could be whatever you want, and I'll theme a Poro around it and post and have that sitting here on the outro. So yeah, but apart from that, that's all I have for you for this one. I will see you all for the next video / on my first stand co-stream. Bye.